The stars stretched endless across the dark sky as the human exploration ship, Aurora, drifted toward the glowing planet below. From a distance, the world looked alive with light. Great rivers of blue radiance cut across the surface like veins, and towers of crystal reached high enough to catch the sunlight of a nearby star. Inside the cockpit, pilot Ryan adjusted his controls and leaned closer to the window. He had seen many worlds before, but this one was unlike any of them. It did not look dead, nor did it look fully alive. It looked ancient, like a forgotten treasure waiting to be uncovered. His team had been sent to map the sector of the galaxy, but Ryan knew he had stumbled onto something far greater. "Landing sequence ready," the ship's computer announced. Ryan guided the Aurora carefully down toward the glowing forests that spread across the planet's surface. As the ship touched the ground, the landing gear pressed into a soft bed of moss that shimmered faintly under the starlight. The air outside was safe to breathe, so he took his helmet but left it clipped to his belt. He wanted to feel the real air of this strange place. When the hatch opened, a gentle wind brushed his face. It carried a faint scent, both sweet and sharp, like flowers mixed with stone dust. Ryan stepped onto the surface and looked around. The trees were tall, their trunks as smooth as glass, and their leaves glowed with pale green light. The ground was dotted with pools of liquid that reflected the sky as if they were mirrors. Every sound felt soft, every shadow stretched long. But Ryan was not alone. Through the trees, he saw movement. Figures dressed in armor stood in a circle around something. At first, Ryan thought it was a camp, but then he saw the details. Their armor gleamed silver, shaped like flowing water, and each figure carried a long spear tipped with crystal. They were not human. Ryan crouched low, his heart beating fast. His training told him to stay hidden and call for backup, but something urged him forward. The figures were protecting someone, and that someone was different from them. She stood taller, her robes shining like woven starlight, her crown a circle of crystal points that glimmered as she moved. Her posture was straight, her chin lifted. She looked both proud and unshaken. The guards seemed tense, their spears angled outward, but the woman raised her hand, and at once they lowered their weapons. Her voice carried across the space, smooth and commanding. Ryan stepped out of the shadows before he could stop himself. The guards instantly turned their spears toward him. The tips hummed with energy, glowing faint blue. He froze, raising both hands to show he meant no harm. "I am not here to fight," Ryan said slowly. His voice echoed slightly in the still air. The woman's eyes fixed on him. They were deep silver, reflecting the light of the crystals around them. She stepped forward, her crown catching the glow of the forest. Ryan felt the weight of her presence before she even spoke. "You are human," she said, her tone sharp. "You are not welcome here." Ryan swallowed. "I came to explore. I mean no harm." The guards murmured in their language, but the woman silenced them with a single glance. She walked closer, stopping only a short distance away. Ryan noticed the way her robe trailed behind her, like a river of light. She was unlike any being he had ever seen. Out of habit, Ryan lifted his hand slightly, as if offering peace. But before he could move closer, the woman raised her own hand sharply. "Touch me again, human, and you will pay the cost," she said. Her voice cut like steel, and the air itself seemed to still around her. The guards stiffened, ready to strike at her signal. Ryan lowered his hand at once, realizing his mistake. He had not understood their customs, and already he had broken a rule he did not know existed. "I am sorry," he said quickly. I meant no insult. The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she lowered her hand, though her eyes remained cold. Your kind rushes forward without thought. You do not understand the weight of what you do. Touch, to us, is sacred. It is not given freely. Remember that, or you will not leave this place alive. Ryan nodded, trying to steady his breath. He had faced dangers before, but none like this. The forest around him glowed quietly, but the real danger stood in front of him, wrapped in pride and command. The woman turned slightly, speaking to her guards in a language Ryan did not know. They obeyed at once, stepping back, though their eyes never left him. Then she looked at him again. You may walk with us, she said. But you will follow our path, and you will not act without permission. If you disobey, my guards will end you before you can draw breath. Ryan exhaled slowly. He had no choice but to agree. I understand. The woman nodded. My name is Myra, Princess of the Avenary. Remember it, human, for you will speak it with respect. Her name echoed in Ryan's mind as he followed the group deeper into the glowing forest. Every step felt heavier than the last. He had wanted to explore a new world, but instead he had walked straight into the heart of a civilization that demanded his caution. And yet, beneath the sharpness of her words, he sensed something else. She had spared him when she could have ordered his end. She had allowed him to walk beside her, though she had every reason to cast him out. It was not trust, not yet, but it was not rejection either. As the forest closed around them and the light of the crystals shimmered above, Ryan realized his journey had only just begun. The warning of the alien princess rang in his ears, firm and unyielding. Touch me again, human, and you will pay the cost. Those words would shape everything that followed. Ryan followed the princess and her guards through the glowing forest. The trees bent toward the wind, their glassy trunks reflecting the silver light of the twin moons above. The moss under his boots gave off a faint shimmer with every step, as if the ground itself was alive. The guards kept their distance, but their spears always pointed in his direction. Ryan understood the warning. One wrong move and they would not hesitate to strike. Still, he kept walking, studying the world around him. His explorer's heart could not stay silent even under threat. At the front, Princess Myra moved like a shadow of light, her robe flowing behind her. She did not look back at him once, yet Ryan felt her awareness on him at all times. It was as though her presence stretched beyond sight, a constant weight pressing down on him. After some time, they reached a clearing. At its center stood a great pillar of crystal rising high into the sky. Around it, smaller crystals formed a perfect circle, each glowing with a steady pulse. The guards spread out, taking their positions. Myra stepped toward the central pillar and placed her hand upon it. The crystal shone brighter at her touch, filling the clearing with silver light. This is a heart stone, she said without turning. It is the memory of our people. Every stone holds the voices of those who came before. To stand here is to stand in the presence of centuries. Ryan listened with awe. It is beautiful. Do all your cities have these stones? Myra glanced at him then, her eyes cool. You speak of them as if they were decorations. To us, they are more than beauty. They are the soul of our kind. Ryan realized he had spoken too lightly. He cleared his throat. I meant respect. I have never seen anything like this before. Her gaze softened only a little. Perhaps. But you must learn, human. Words carry weight. Your kind speaks too freely. He nodded, careful this time. I will remember. For a while there was silence. Ryan studied the pillar, but his attention kept drifting back to Myra. She carried herself with a discipline unlike anything he had seen among humans. Every movement was measured, every word chosen. She was not only a leader by title, but also by presence. Finally, he asked, "Why did you let me live? You could have ended me back there." Myra did not look at him as she answered. "Because you are ignorant, not yet dangerous. To strike you down would be wasteful. But do not mistake mercy for acceptance. You walk here under my will alone." Her words were sharp, but Ryan caught something hidden beneath them. She could have chosen differently, and yet she had not. That choice mattered. He stepped closer to the edge of the circle, watching the way the crystals pulsed. Each beat reminded him of a heart, alive and steady. "In my world, we keep history in books. We write down words so that the future can learn. Your people keep history in light and stone. It is not so different, is it?" The guards bristled at his casual tone, but Myra raised her hand, and they held their silence. She turned toward him slowly, her silver eyes narrowing. "You compare your scraps of paper to our living memory. You call them the same. And yet your kind burns books, forgets its lessons, repeats its mistakes. Tell me, human, how is that not different?" Ryan felt the sting of her words, but he did not turn away. "You are right. We make mistakes. But we also rise again. We learn by falling. That is who we are." The clearing grew quiet again. Myra studied him, as though measuring the truth of his words. At last, she said, "Perhaps that is why your kind is reckless. You think every fall can be repaired. You do not fear what cannot be undone." Ryan thought about that. There was truth in it. Humanity often pushed forward, sometimes blindly, believing they could fix whatever damage came after. But standing here among the Avenari, he began to see the weight of traditions that had shaped them. They were bound by order, while humans were driven by daring. As they spoke, the guards shifted, restless. One of them, a tall figure with sharper armor, stepped forward. He spoke in his tongue, his tone heated. Ryan could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. He did not trust Ryan's presence. Myra listened, then answered in the same language. Her words were calm but final. The guard stiffened, then bowed his head and stepped back into line. Ryan raised a brow. "He does not want me here, does he?" Myra's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. "You understand more than you speak." "No, he does not. Few of my people will. But for now, your fate is mine to decide." Ryan let out a slow breath. "Then I will make sure not to waste it." Myra turned back toward the Heartstone, her robe catching the light. "We will see, human. We will see." The night deepened, and the clearing grew quiet once more. The silver glow of the crystals lit their faces, casting long shadows across the moss. Between them stood the weight of two worlds, so different yet now walking the same path. Neither knew if that path would lead to peace or ruin, but both understood one thing: this meeting was no accident. Ryan watched Myra as she stood tall beside the Heartstone. She was proud, guarded, and unyielding. Yet beneath her warning, he sensed curiosity, like a flame hidden under stone. Myra, on the other hand, studied Ryan from the corner of her eye. The human was bold, almost too bold. But he had not turned away when she struck at him with words. That alone marked him as different. Perhaps dangerous, perhaps valuable. The clash of their worlds had begun, and neither could step back now. The night on the alien world passed with a strange stillness. Ryan sat near the edge of the clearing, watching the crystal towers glow softly against the sky. The air felt alive, carrying a faint hum that reminded him of a ship's engine. It was as if the entire planet breathed in silence. The Avenary guards kept their spears close, their silver armor shining in the moonlight. They did not speak to Ryan, but their eyes followed him whenever he moved. He knew they did not trust him, and he did not expect them to. Myra stood near the Heartstone, her hand lightly resting on its surface. She seemed deep in thought, her silver eyes reflecting the steady pulse of the crystal. She did not look at him, yet he felt her presence as strongly as ever. Ryan leaned back against a tree, pulling out his scanner. The small device hummed as it measured energy around the area. At first, the readings showed the expected glow of the crystals and the faint heat from the moss. But then, something unusual appeared. A spike of energy came from above the atmosphere. It was faint, almost hidden, but clear enough for his trained eyes. He frowned. "That's not natural," he whispered. The scanner showed a signature he recognized well. Cloaking fields. A ship was hiding in orbit. Ryan's heart tightened. He had seen this before in other sectors. Scavenger fleets, the kind that preyed on weak or unprepared worlds. They took resources, technology, even lives, leaving ruins behind. Ryan glanced at Myra, wondering if he should speak. He had only just begun to earn the smallest thread of tolerance from her. If he spoke now, she might dismiss him. But if he stayed silent, her people could be in danger. Finally, he stood and walked toward her. The guards shifted at once, spears raised, but Myra raised her hand to stop them. She turned her gaze on Ryan, her expression unreadable. "What is it, human?" she asked. Ryan held up his scanner. "I picked up a cloak signal in orbit. Another ship, maybe more than one. It does not belong to you, does it?" Myra's brow tightened. "No other ships enter our skies. The Council watches the heavens carefully." "You are mistaken." Ryan shook his head. "I am not. I have seen this before. These are scavengers. They hide, they wait, and when they strike, they destroy everything in their path. I think they are already here." The guards muttered angrily, their voices sharp in their language. One stepped forward, pointing his spear at Ryan. Myra raised her hand again, silencing him. "You speak as though you know the ways of the stars better than we do," she said coldly. "You expect me to believe your warning after you have been here for only one night." Ryan met her gaze. "I don't expect belief. I expect caution. If I am wrong, then nothing happens. But if I am right, and you ignore this, your people could pay dearly." The air grew heavy between them. Myra's silver eyes searched his face, as if weighing the truth in his words. For a moment, Ryan thought she might listen. But then she turned back to the Heartstone. "My people do not fear shadows in the sky," she said firmly. "The Council will hear nothing of this. We have survived for centuries. We will not tremble because of human fears." Ryan clenched his jaw. He wanted to argue, but he saw the pride in her stance. She would not bend so easily. Still, Myra's mind was not as calm as her words. As she stood by the Heartstone, she remembered old stories told in whispers. Tales of ships that came in silence and left only ruin behind. Her council had dismissed those stories as myths, warnings for children. But the way the human spoke, the certainty in his voice, stirred unease within her. Later that night, as the guards kept watch, Ryan stayed awake, studying his scanner again. The cloak signals grew stronger. There were at least 3 ships, maybe more. They were not moving yet, but they were close. Too close. He looked toward Myra. She stood tall despite the late hour, her hand never far from her crystal crown. She had warned him, scolded him, dismissed him, yet she had not turned him away. That alone gave him a spark of hope. At dawn, Myra led her group deeper into the forest. Ryan walked behind, still uneasy. The glowing trees swayed gently, and pools of mirrored water reflected their steps. The path twisted until they reached a wide ridge that overlooked a valley. Below, an Avenary outpost stood among the crystals, its walls shining with silver light. Myra raised her hand toward it. "This is one of our outer stations. From here, messages flow to the council. It is proof that we guard our skies." Ryan lifted his scanner again. His stomach dropped. The cloak signals were moving closer toward the valley. His breath quickened. "They are here," he said, his voice tight. Myra turned sharply. "Enough of this." Ryan handed her the scanner. "Look for yourself. These readings do not lie." She stared at the device, her brow furrowing as she studied the shifting signals. Though she tried to remain firm, her heart began to pound. She had never seen human tools before, but the patterns were clear even to her eyes. Something hidden was indeed circling above. Still, she closed the scanner and gave it back. "The council will not listen to me if I bring them only the word of a human. They will call it fear, nothing more." Ryan took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Then don't bring them my word. Bring them yours. If you saw what I saw in other systems, you would not wait for proof. When scavengers strike, proof comes too late." Myra looked at him, her silver eyes caught between doubt and pride. For the first time, she did not speak at once. In that silence, the wind shifted. From the sky above, faint streaks of fire cut through the morning light. Ryan's eyes widened. He knew those shapes too well. Small craft, dropping from orbit. The scavengers had already begun to move. The guards shouted in alarm, raising their spears. Myra's hand froze in midair, her expression hardening. She had wanted to believe her council's strength, but now the truth could not be denied. Ryan looked at her, his voice steady. "It begins." Myra raised her hand high, her voice sharp and commanding. "Form ranks. Defend the station." The guards obeyed at once, forming a silver wall around her. Ryan stood at her side, gripping his scanner like a weapon even though he knew it was not one. He was an explorer, not a soldier, yet he could not step back now. The clash of cultures had turned into something far greater. Together, they would face the hidden danger that now revealed itself in fire. The valley filled with sound as the scavenger craft dropped from the sky. Their dark hulls shimmered with faint distortions, proof of the cloaking fields that had hidden them until now. The ships cut through the air like jagged blades, leaving trails of smoke behind. The Avenary guards tightened their formation around Princess Myra. Their crystal spears glowed with pale light, each tip humming with energy. Their silver armor caught the sun, shining like a wall of moonlight. They did not flinch. They had been trained for war, but even they had never faced enemies like these. Ryan stood close, his scanner still in hand. His chest tightened as he watched the craft descend. They were smaller landing ships, the kind scavengers used to send raiding parties before the main fleet struck. He had seen them tear colonies apart in hours. He knew what was coming. Myra raised her hand high. Her voice carried across the valley, strong and steady. Hold your ground. Let them see the strength of the Avenari. The guards shouted in reply, their voices echoing together like thunder. The first scavenger craft landed near the edge of the outpost. Its hull opened with a sharp hiss, and figures stepped out. They were tall, armored in jagged metal plates, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. Each carried weapons that hissed with red light. Their movements were fast, sharp, like predators. Ryan's heart pounded. He whispered quickly to Myra, their weapons burn through defenses. Your crystal walls will not hold if they focus fire. Myra gave him a brief glance, her eyes cold but alert. Then we strike before they can gather. She lowered her hand, and the guards rushed forward. Crystal spears clashed against red beams as the battle began. Sparks flew in the air, and the sound of steel against energy filled the valley. Ryan ducked behind a broken wall, pulling out his wrist comm. He sent a quick signal to his ship, the Aurora, calling for automated defense drones. They would take time to reach him, but it was all he had. Myra fought at the front, her robe flowing as she moved with swift precision. In her hand, a crystal blade shimmered, cutting through scavenger armor with strikes guided by discipline and power. Her guards followed her lead, holding the line with unyielding strength. Ryan watched her with awe. She was no distant ruler now. She was a warrior, leading her people by example. Every strike she made inspired those around her. Yet the scavengers pressed harder, their numbers growing as more craft landed in the valley. One scavenger broke past the line and charged toward Myra. Ryan's instincts took control. Without thinking, he rushed forward and slammed his shoulder into the attacker, knocking it off balance. The scavenger turned on him, raising its weapon. Before it could fire, Myra's blade cut through the enemy, sending it crashing to the ground. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Myra turned her silver eyes on Ryan, her breath quick and sharp. He had touched her, broken her command once again. Her voice cut through the chaos. I warned you. Ryan stepped back, chest heaving. If I hadn't, you would be dead. Their words clashed like weapons, but there was no time to argue. More scavengers charged, and Myra raised her hand, calling her guards to regroup. The line closed again, forcing the raiders back. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Ryan fought with whatever he could find, throwing shards of crystal, using his scanner to blind enemy sensors, even striking with his fists when needed. He was not trained like the Avenari, but desperation gave him strength. At last, a sharp whistle echoed across the valley. Ryan looked up to see his drones descending from the sky, their small bodies darting like sparks of light. They fired streams of plasma, tearing into scavenger ranks. The tide of battle shifted. Myra saw the machines arrive, her expression unreadable. But she did not reject their help. She raised her blade high and shouted, "Push them back." Together, Avenari warriors and human drones forced the scavengers to retreat. The raiders fell one by one, and the remaining craft pulled back into the sky, their engines roaring as they fled. Silence settled over the valley at last. The crystal walls of the outpost were scarred, the ground burned with black marks, and bodies lay scattered in the moss. The Avenari guards stood tall, their armor scratched but unbroken. Myra lowered her blade slowly, her breath steady, her robe torn at the edges. Ryan leaned against the broken wall, his chest heaving with exhaustion. He had never fought so hard in his life. His drones hovered above, their lights dimming as their power drained. Myra walked toward him, her silver eyes sharp. The guards followed at a distance, watching closely. She stopped just a step away, her presence heavy. "You touched me again," she said, her voice low but firm. "You broke your promise." Ryan straightened, meeting her gaze despite his weariness. "I saved your life. You can hate me for it, but it is the truth." Myra's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. She stared at him for a long moment, as if searching for weakness. Instead, she found resolve. "You are reckless," she said. "You do not understand our ways. But you fight with courage. That cannot be denied." The guards murmured in surprise. Myra rarely spoke words of acknowledgement to outsiders. But she raised her hand, silencing them once more. "This battle is not the end," she continued. "If scavengers have found our world, more will come. My council will not believe easily, but now I have seen with my own eyes. And you, human, have played a part in that truth." Ryan gave a faint smile. "Then maybe now you'll listen when I warn you." Myra's eyes narrowed slightly, though not in anger. "Do not test my patience. You live because I allow it. But I will admit this much. Without you, today would have ended differently." Ryan felt the weight of her words. It was not friendship, not even trust, but it was the first step towards something greater. The valley grew quiet again as the sun rose higher. The light touched the crystal walls, casting rainbows across the broken ground. The Avenari gathered their fallen, their chants soft and steady. Myra stood among them, her head held high. Ryan looked at her and knew one thing. The trial of trust had begun. And in that trial, both human and Avenari would be tested again and again. The sun rose high above the valley, casting its light across the broken battlefield. Smoke drifted from scorched earth, and the scent of burned crystal filled the air. The scavengers were gone for now, but their shadow lingered. The Avenari guards moved quietly among their fallen, lifting bodies with care, wrapping them in cloth of silver thread. Their chants rose in low, steady voices, a song of honor for those who had given their lives. Ryan stood apart, watching with silent respect. He had seen loss before in human colonies, but here it felt heavier. The Avenari treated every fallen warrior as if they carried a piece of their world's spirit. It was not numbers that mattered to them, but meaning. Princess Myra stood tall at the center of her people. Her robe was torn, her crown cracked at one edge, yet her presence was unshaken. She gave orders in her clear, sharp voice, sending runners to warn nearby stations. Her silver eyes burned with determination, but also with something new. She had seen the truth with her own eyes, and it could not be denied. When the last chant ended, Myra turned to Ryan. "You will come with me to the council. They must hear what has happened." Ryan gave a slow nod. "If they listen." Myra's gaze hardened. "They will listen to me. Whether they accept you is another matter." The journey to the council's stronghold took half a day. They traveled through forests where crystal towers rose like frozen lightning, through valleys where the ground glowed with veins of blue light, and across bridges spun from stone as smooth as glass. The Avenari guards never left Myra's side, and their eyes never left Ryan. At last, the stronghold came into view. It was a city of crystal and stone, built into the side of a mountain. Towers rose high, their tips catching sunlight and scattering it like prisms. The walls glowed faintly, alive with energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Inside, the council chamber stretched wide and tall. A circle of crystal thrones surrounded the center, each throne holding a figure draped in silver robes. Their faces were stern, their crowns smaller than Myra's but still gleaming. The chamber hummed with power, as if the crystals themselves listened to every word. Myra stepped forward with her guards behind her. Ryan followed, though he felt the weight of 100 eyes pressing on him. The counselors spoke in their tongue, voices echoing like waves of stone. Then one turned to Myra, his voice steady. "Princess, you bring with you a human. Explain." Myra lifted her chin. "This human came from the stars. At first I saw him as reckless, but he has shown courage. He warned of danger, and today his words proved true. Scavengers have reached our world." The chamber stirred with whispers. Some counselors frowned, others leaned forward with interest. One raised his hand, his voice sharp. "Scavengers are stories told to frighten. You let fear cloud your mind, princess. Perhaps this human has filled your thoughts with lies." Myra's silver eyes flashed. "I do not speak of shadows. I speak of fire and blood. I fought them with my own hand. Many of our warriors fell. The humans' drones fought beside us, and together we forced the raiders back. If not for his warning, we would have lost the outpost." The chamber grew restless. Some counselors spoke among themselves, their voices uncertain. Others shook their heads. Finally, the eldest among them rose. His crown was carved from a single shard of crystal, glowing faintly. His voice was calm but heavy. "Even if these raiders are real, we cannot bind ourselves to humans. They rush, they burn, they break. We are order. They are chaos. To join with them is to invite ruin." Myra did not flinch. She stepped closer to the circle, her robe trailing behind her. "Order without strength is fragile. We cannot face this threat alone. Their machines move with speed we lack. Their eyes see what ours cannot. We must combine what we have with what they bring. Only together do we stand a chance." The elder's gaze shifted to Ryan. "And you, human? Speak. Why should we trust your kind?" Ryan felt every eye in the chamber. He swallowed, then stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. "You do not need to trust all humans. Trust only me. I have seen scavengers destroy worlds. I will not watch it happen again. Your people have power, but these raiders will test it until it breaks. My ship and your crystals together can make something new. Something strong enough to fight back." A ripple moved through the council. Some shook their heads, others whispered. The elder sat again, folding his hands. "You speak boldly. But bold words are easy. We have no proof of your loyalty." Myra turned sharply, her voice ringing like steel. "He saved me in battle. He saved my guards. He could have fled, but he fought. Is that not proof enough?" Her words hung in the air. The counselors sat in silence. Finally, the elder raised his hand. "We will not give approval. We will not ally with humans. If you choose to act, princess, you act alone." The judgment fell like a stone. Myra's guard stiffened, but Myra did not bow her head. She turned, her robe flowing like silver water, and walked toward the chamber doors. Ryan followed, his steps heavy. When they reached the outer hall, Myra stopped. Her silver eyes burned with fire. "The council is blind," she said. "They see tradition as a shield, but it will not stop what comes. I cannot wait for them to change." Ryan met her gaze. Then what will you do? She lifted her hand slowly, not in warning this time, but in command. We will fight anyway. You and I. My guards will follow me, not the council. We will build what they fear to build. An alliance born of necessity. Ryan nodded. Then I'm with you. For the first time, Myra's lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile. Do not think this makes you one of us, human. You are still reckless. But perhaps recklessness is what we need. The sound of her words echoed in the crystal hall, like the first crack in a wall too long unbroken. The choice had been made. Against the will of her council, Princess Myra had chosen alliance. And from that choice, the future of two races would be forged. The night sky above the Avenary Mountains burned with streaks of light. Ships of dark metal fell through the clouds, engines roaring like thunder. The scavengers had returned, larger in number and more prepared than before. Their vessels hung in the sky like black knives, sharp and merciless. Princess Myra stood upon the crystal wall of the outpost, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind her, her guards moved swiftly, stringing crystal bows, preparing lances of glowing energy. The towers hummed with stored power, waiting to be unleashed. Yet even with all their strength, Myra knew it would not be enough. Beside her, Ryan tightened the straps of his suit. His small drones hovered in formation, their red lights pulsing like beating hearts. His ship, though scarred from the last battle, stood ready. It gleamed faintly under the twin moons, patched and armed with what little they had rebuilt. They will strike harder this time, Ryan said, scanning the sky. They think your people are weak. We must show them they are wrong. Myra raised her hand, pointing toward the falling ships. Then let us meet them before they reach the ground. The air shook as the first scavenger ship fired. A bolt of searing light crashed against the crystal wall, splitting stone and sending shards flying. Guards staggered but did not break. They raised their bows, loosed arrows of glowing crystal, and the sky lit with streaks of silver. One scavenger fighter fell in flames, spinning into the valley below. Ryan leapt into his ship, its engines roaring to life. His drones followed, weaving around him like hawks. He shot upward, breaking into the path of the scavenger fighters. The air filled with fire as bolts of plasma rained from above. His drones darted in tight arcs, striking at enemy wings, breaking formations apart. On the ground, Myra commanded with precision. Her voice carried across the outpost. Shields forward. Strike towers, release. The towers answered her call. Beams of crystal light shot into the sky, cutting through enemy hulls. One scavenger ship burst apart, raining metal and fire into the forest. Another wavered but pressed on. The battle raged, sky and ground alive with flame. Scavenger troops dropped from their ships, armored and armed with brutal weapons. They landed hard in the valley, charging toward the crystal walls. Myra drew her lance, its tip blazing with silver fire, and her guards followed. Together they met the raiders in a clash of light and steel. Myra moved like a storm, every strike swift and fierce. Her lance cut through armor, her voice ringing out commands. Her guards held the line, their shields of crystal catching blows that would have shattered stone. Yet the scavengers pressed harder, their numbers endless, their hunger driving them forward. Above, Ryan's ship spiraled between enemy fighters. He locked onto a scavenger gunship, fired, and tore through its side. Flames erupted, scattering debris across the clouds. His drones swarmed another, cutting its engines until it spiraled down. Still, more came. His ship shook under heavy fire, warning lights flashing red. "Myra," he called through the comm, "they are focusing on my drones. I cannot hold them all." Her voice answered, steady even in chaos. "Hold as long as you can. We will cut them down on the ground." A wave of scavenger raiders broke through, smashing against the walls. Myra fought at the front, silver hair streaked with dust and light. Her guards fell one by one, but none retreated. The outpost shook with every blast, every cry, every clash of weapons. Then, as the battle reached its peak, Myra raised her hand high. "Now! Release the core." From deep within the outpost, a great pulse of crystal energy burst forth. The ground shook, the walls glowed, and a wave of light swept across the valley. Scavenger troops staggered, their armor cracking under the force. Enemy ships shuddered, their systems faltering. For a brief moment, the tide turned. Ryan saw his chance. He pushed his ship higher, past burning clouds, until he locked onto the largest scavenger vessel. Its dark hull loomed like a fortress, bristling with weapons. He tightened his grip, his voice calm. "If we take this one down, the rest may scatter." Myra's voice came through. "Do it, human. I will hold the ground." He sped forward, weaving through enemy fire, his drones flying ahead like arrows. They struck at turrets, distracting the ship's guns. Ryan aimed for the weak point he had studied, a vent glowing faintly along the hull. He fired all weapons, his ship shaking with the force. The blast tore into the vent, fire spilling out as the scavenger vessel shuddered. But it did not fall. Its guns turned on him, power surging, ready to strike. On the ground, Myra saw the danger. Without hesitation, she raised her hand once more, channeling the last of the core's energy through her lance. The weapon blazed brighter than ever before. With a cry that carried across the valley, she hurled it skyward. The lance struck the scavenger vessel with blinding light. The hull cracked, fire burst outward, and the ship split apart in the sky. Flames rained down like falling stars, and the scavenger army faltered. Their cries turned from rage to fear. One by one, their ships pulled back, retreating into the night. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire. The battlefield lay in ruins, but the outpost still stood. Myra lowered her hand, her strength nearly gone. Her guards gathered around her, their eyes wide with awe. Ryan landed his ship, smoke trailing from its engines. He stepped out, his face streaked with sweat and ash, but his eyes alive. He looked at Myra and gave a nod. "You saved us all." Myra met his gaze, her silver eyes steady. "No, human. We saved each other." The dawn broke, light spilling across the valley. The Avenary had stood their ground, but the cost was heavy. The scavengers had been driven away, yet Myra knew they would return. Stronger, hungrier, more determined. But now, for the first time, they were ready to face them not as two worlds, but as one. The valley was quiet after the battle, but it was not a peaceful quiet. Smoke rose from broken ships, the earth was scarred with fire, and crystal towers still flickered with the last sparks of power. The scavengers had been driven away, yet the air felt heavy. Everyone knew they would return one day, stronger and in greater numbers. Princess Myra stood at the center of the outpost. Her robe was torn, her crown cracked, but her presence had not faded. Around her, guards moved slowly, tending to the wounded, lifting the fallen, and marking graves with glowing crystal banners. Each banner gave off a faint light, as if the spirits of the fallen watched over them. Ryan walked beside her. His ship rested behind him, engines damaged but still alive. His drones hovered close, many of them scorched and broken from the fight. He had seen battles before, but never one where two people so different stood side by side. His respect for Myra and her people had grown stronger than he expected. Myra's voice broke the silence. "We won today, but this victory is small. The scavengers will return. If we fight alone, we will fall." Ryan looked at the silver-eyed princess. "Then we cannot fight alone. We must carry this truth to both our people." Her gaze was firm. "My council will not accept you, but they will hear me. And your leaders must hear me as well." The decision was made. Days later, after repairs were completed, a single ship rose from the Crystal Mountains. Inside it traveled Myra, Ryan, and a small group of guards. They crossed through endless black space, leaving behind the glowing valleys of Avenary, moving toward the nearest human colony. When the ship landed, soldiers rushed to surround it. Human officers stepped forward, their eyes sharp with caution. But when the ramp lowered and Myra stepped out, tall and shining even in her torn robe, silence fell. Few humans had ever seen an Avenary princess before. The human council gathered in a hall of steel and glass. Myra stood before them without fear. She told them of the scavenger attack, of the battles fought in the valley, and of how human and Avenary had stood together to win. She did not soften her words. She spoke of fire, blood, and the cost of denial. At first, many on the council hesitated. Some feared that joining the Avenary would draw the scavengers' rage. Others doubted the story, calling it the fear of a foreign princess. But then Ryan stepped forward. He spoke of the colonies he had seen fall, of families lost, of battles where humans had stood alone and been crushed. He pointed to Myra and her guards. "These people did not turn away when the fight came," he said. "They fought beside us. If we do not stand beside them now, we will face the scavengers one by one until nothing is left." The council chamber grew still. Slowly, the leader of the human colony, a woman with dark eyes, rose. Her voice was steady. "If what you say is true, then we cannot wait. We will stand with the Avenary." The decision spread like fire. Ships were called from distant stations. Engineers worked day and night. Human steel and Avenary crystal were combined for the first time. Weapons of new design began to take shape. Shields stronger than before, ships faster than before, engines powered by both science and energy of crystal veins. Myra walked through the shipyards one evening, her steps echoing on steel floors. She saw humans and Avenary working together, voices mixing, hands moving as one. Sparks flew from welding torches, and crystal shards glowed under careful guidance. For the first time, she felt hope that her people would not stand alone. Ryan joined her, his clothes marked with grease from helping the engineers. He smiled faintly. They are beginning to believe. Both sides. They are no longer looking at each other as strangers. Myra kept her eyes on the workers. This is only the beginning. The scavengers will return, harder than before. Then we will be ready, Ryan answered. In the weeks that followed, the first United Fleet took shape. Ships rose from dry docks, their hulls a blend of human design and Avenary craft. Where once engines glowed red or blue, now they shone with both, colors twisting together in steady light. Soldiers trained side by side, human rifles aligned with crystal lances, each learning the strengths of the other. On the day of the first launch, Myra stood on the command deck of the flagship. The ship stretched wide, its frame of steel bound with glowing veins of crystal. Around it, hundreds of vessels floated in silence, waiting. Her guards stood behind her, their armor polished, their faces calm. Ryan stood at her side, his uniform marked with symbols of both races. Together they looked out at the fleet that filled the sky. "This is more than a fleet," Ryan said quietly. "It is proof that two worlds can become one." Myra lifted her hand. "And it is the answer to those who thought us weak." Her words carried across the deck. The order was given, and engines roared to life. The fleet moved forward, rising into the stars. The scavengers had believed they could break worlds one by one. They had not expected unity. They had not expected that a human and an Avenari princess would stand side by side and change the future of both peoples. As the ships vanished into the endless night, the message was clear. A new force had been born. A force not of one race but of many, forged in battle, bound by trust, and ready to face the storm waiting among the stars.